not broken. You're just ready for your next breakthrough.
Violet Lange is an intimacy, dating, and relationship expert who helps women create passionate, powerful partnerships. She's a graduate of Harvard Business School with an undergraduate in chemical engineering. Violet loves to apply systems thinking to the art of sex and relationships and has helped hundreds of women create healthy love and hot intimacy.
There's a spectrum from discomfort to freeze, just being frozen in your body. Give yourself a little bit of energetic and physical space from your partner. If we're not listening to our body, we're teaching our body that we don't trust ourselves. It's a great time for a sacred pause.
A 2023 Harvard study found that out of everything it looked for as far as the root causes to help people have longer, healthier lives, the number one thing the study found that people should focus on is their relationships. So to help solve some of the relationship crisis that we have around the world, I have created this upcoming 3-day eternal honeymoon extravaganza. I am bringing together 15 speakers from around the world in the love, sex, intimacy, and relationship space to help you finally have better passion, have better sex, have better connection, communication, intimacy, and more. And this event is normally $397 and it is on sale right now for $1. So I hope you will prioritize your relationships and join me at this epic event. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode on the Libido Lounge. I'm so excited to meet and introduce you to a very kindred spirit. You hear me talk on here all the time about hot and modern monogamy, and my next guest talks about hot intimacy. So we have some very fun overlaps. We're going to talk today about what happens when we get shut down during sex. I think this is a common thing that happens where people, many times women, but it can happen to women or men, get shut down and check out and dissociate. And there's so much trauma. There's so many micro traumas that can happen on both the giving and the receiving part inside of this. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to work with struggles that happen when people are pregnant or have fertility issues, as well as when they're parents and they're having parental struggles and they're trying to fit in this, sex life into all of that and so much more today. So to help us with this, Violet Lange is going to, talk to us about her wisdom. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and so excited to connect with everyone listening about how you can work with your own sex life, even when there are challenges or you find yourself really feeling like something's broken. It's not broken. You're just ready for your next breakthrough.
Yeah, I love that reframe, right? Because I think so many times it's like when something is broken and, if we're using that term, if we see that and we're using those frames, that's when it's like all those other things come in the head, right? It's like the guilt and the judgment and the fear and, and all these things that are not helpful versus the reframes that you just gave us. So thank you for starting off the show so positively around you're ready for your next breakthrough. You're ready. This is just a flag. This is just information that is saying that, hey, this is not going the way you want. And it doesn't mean that there's any judgment or any other things we need to associate with this, just that there's information and your breakthrough is coming. So tell us a little bit about being shut down during sex. I want to talk about that because even in this intro you gave us around things are broken, as some people would define them. We're redefining it as you're ready for your next breakthrough. And even when this happens, one of the things that I think is oftentimes a early warning sign that people miss is starting to really shut down during sex. So can you talk to us about what's happening there when that's happening? How do people even recognize that? Is that an early warning sign? Is it not? Just kind of give us the lay of the land, if you would.
Yeah, I would say there's a spectrum from discomfort at the low end to maybe pain to freeze, just being frozen in your body. And depending on how in touch we are with our body in that moment, because we're not always 1,000% in touch with our body. We might be stressed, or we might be thinking about our kids, or we might be worried about our body image or something. we may or may not pick up like where we are kind of in that spectrum. But I think the key is that as soon as we do, we honor ourselves like, okay, something isn't feeling quite right. And I have a choice. Like I have a choice to kind of keep going and just hope it gets better. Or I have a choice to shift the situation. And there's so many ways that we can shift it. And by the way, like I'm no saint, I've been in freeze at times in my life. I've been in discomfort. I've been in every place on this spectrum. So there's no shame in it. It's like you said, it's just information and then a choice, a power empowerment.
So if it is information, right? Like, and people are like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely shutting down with this. Like, what are do you have steps or like guidance from a standpoint of action? I always like to give people as much actionable, advice on here as possible. So if people are beginning to realize, like, yeah, I'm really shut down about sex, I'm really shut down about my life, like, where do people start in your experience?
That's a great question. I think if you find yourself in freeze frequently, like if it's not just an every once in a while thing, but it seems to be recurring fairly regularly, then that's just a beautiful opportunity to do some deeper connection with yourself. It could be healing from past trauma. It could be working with a therapist. It could be clearing the air and clearing resentments with your partner. Because sometimes freeze isn't maybe something from like a past sexual trauma, although it can be. It could be that you feel completely unseen by your partner and you're having obligatory sex. So that's a deep call for awareness and personal growth work. If it's more like, oh, I'm feeling kind of uncomfortable, maybe I said yes, but now I'm kind of feeling like I'm a no or I'm a maybe. I always say it's a great time for a sacred pause. So like, you know what? I need to go get a drink of water. I need to go to the bathroom. Like give yourself a little bit of energetic and physical space from your partner. And I don't want people to get in their heads like, oh, is it because I, drank a glass of wine? Like it's not about analyzing. It's more about, okay, do I want to do something to bring me into more pleasure? So maybe I need to light a candle. Maybe I need to say to my partner, like, I'm feeling really insecure. Can we turn the lights down? Or can you tell me that I'm beautiful? Like asking for what we need. Sometimes it's getting lube, but like there can be practical things that we're doing. But if we do something practical like lube, candle, ask for a compliment, whatever, and then we're still feeling crunchy or no, then that's where we have to be super courageous and just be like, you know what? I don't think I can keep going right now and still feel good and authentic to myself. Can we take a rain check or can we resume later?
There's so many things you just said that I think are so important. I want to highlight two of them. One being the sacred pause, as you're calling it, because I think so many times people they start into whatever sexual experience they're having, and once it starts, it's almost like we're never taught that it's okay to take a pause. It's okay to be like, hey, I need a moment. I need to go get that glass of water. I need to excuse myself and go to the bathroom. I need to light a candle, do these things as you're talking about. So I think there's so much to be said around like recognizing that and just taking a moment for yourself and taking a pause to just breathe, have a moment, check in with yourself, ask for what you need and just giving that permission. And also the other thing that I think is so important to just mention that you said is this idea of it's okay if you start and you're like, I can't finish tonight. Because I think so many times there's so much like judgment on this, on ourselves, right? And there's so much just almost like societal programming that, hey, once you start, like you're committed, like, blue balls for men and all these kind of things, right? Of like, if you don't finish, then like all of this pain, all these things are going to happen. And I think so many times people are not listening to their own bodies, which has longer term detrimental effects. So I have, with all that said, I have a two-part follow-up question. The one is in situations where, people are maybe have this programming around like the blue balls or like, hey, this is not allowed. I can't take a break. Is there anything additional that you would say to them to help, people become more comfortable with like listening to their own body? In part, the question is, what happens if we don't? Like if we are just like not listening to this and we have everything in our body saying like, oh gosh, I just am not into this and I really don't want to continue. And like, this does not feel like where I want to be in this moment. what are the ramifications? What are the downsides of not honoring that? So that's part one. And then part two is from a standpoint of when we're talking about getting shut down during sex, if a partner is realizing that is happening, that their partner is getting shut down, is there any advice you have from the partner standpoint to help with, that moment?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Thank you for asking those two things. If we're not listening to our body and not taking that sacred pause or ending the sexual experience, at least for a time, or picking it up a few days later or something, we're teaching our body that we don't trust ourselves. And then it's harder to show up authentically. It's like we're carrying a self-betrayal wound that's keeping us from being fully engaged and present. And I think that actually can hinder the full experience that we want to have sexually, whether that's just emotional connection or deep orgasms or whatever it is. And then we also are kind of shortchanging our partner because we're assuming that they can't handle it, that we have to, keep going on their behalf instead of thinking they're strong and powerful and they know how much I love them. And if stuff comes up because I ask for a pause and their shame gets triggered, then we get to both like hold each other in that and create even deeper intimacy. I have had situations where I have just powered through. This was with a previous partner than my now husband, but I just powered through because his libido was high. We were in a long distance relationship. And when we were together, he just wanted a lot of sex. And I've had times where my libido is really high, so I can appreciate that. But unfortunately, then I would withdraw. Like after he left or even during it, I was bracing, and there was a time where he was like, "What's wrong with you? Don't you even like sex?" And that was his own stuff coming up. That relationship didn't sustain itself for many reasons, but I'm glad that I eventually spoke my truth and kind of said like, I can't, because it revealed that we were a bit mismatched in our view on this topic. Now, there's been the exact same situation that's happened with my husband where I've said no, or I've said I can't anymore. And he's been like, okay, that's hard for me to hear, but I would never want you to experience pain on my behalf. So please always tell me. So we created a new agreement in our relationship, which is if it ever doesn't feel good, I want to know.
Just a quick interlude because I want to address that it is so common that people are struggling to prioritize their relationships and their intimate life between jobs and kids and caring for elderly parents and so much more. Sometimes it can just feel like a last thing on the to-do list. Now, if you're struggling with that, or if you're struggling with having better sex or having good orgasms or lasting longer or erectile dysfunction or pelvic pain or something else in the sex, emotional, relationship, intimacy space, you are definitely going to want to take a moment right now so you remember to sign up for the Eternal Honeymoon Extravaganza. I have 15 speakers that I've specially curated and picked from around the world for a very complete and holistic look and teachings and actionable steps from everything under the sun, sex, and relationships. So take a quick minute, go click on that link and register to make sure you remember. And I look forward to seeing you there. Now let's get back to our episode.
And so if a partner says that, it's like, so relaxing and like relieving. It doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. Like it doesn't sting, I should say, to be the one who's like, I need to take a pause because and then I feel guilty. But I'd rather do that and preserve our connection and go through the crunchiness together than to withhold my truth and then have it come out in kind of bigger, more explosive or detrimental ways.
Yeah, and to your point on that too, I think if we are not being honest sometimes with ourselves around this doesn't feel good and I need a pause, I think there's then this level where it's often then correlates to like not being actually fully honest with ourselves and then with our partner around like, oh yeah, this feels really good. Like there's a it's almost like the body stops listening to all of those signals as much and we stop tuning into, okay, well, what's not feeling pleasurable, like we make that not okay to listen to, and then we make what is pleasurable also not able to be listened to. So I think it really can impact the not only the honoring what we don't like, but also honoring what our body really loves.
Absolutely.
And so then in this second part around the question around like, okay, well, how to best support a partner if they're, if they're kind of shutting down, is the bulk of your like first layer of your response here really on starting to create new agreements so that this is a safe thing, and so just encouraging the partner to be honest, or are there other, there are other comments you have on that question as well?
Yeah, the agreements are a good first layer because we want our brains to feel safe that we can communicate this without like retaliation or something damaging the relationship. But then there are a lot of somatic cues that we can invite our partner into. So we can invite eye contact if our partner is kind of drifting off. I mean, we all close our eyes, obviously, during sex sometimes, but you can put your hand like on their back if you're in missionary position and just kind of like stroke the back of their neck or turn them towards you. Like sometimes with my husband, I like to scratch his back or like slap his butt playfully, but it's like, hey, like be here with me now. Um, I think you can oftentimes tell if someone is tensing and holding their breath. And again, sometimes we do that because we're about to climax. Like, so that's not a bad thing, but we just want to start being attuned to ourselves and then also to our partner. A lot of times I work with women who have had like 3 to 5 years of obligatory sex post kids or in other phases of their life as the relationship continues. And it's a lot more work to unpack that, although it totally can be done and it's done all the time. It's harder to unpack that than to start bringing these things into your sex life now, being a little more attuned to each other. And I know it sounds cheesy to check in during sex, but I think it's okay to just be like, how's this feeling for you? Or like, what are you feeling? What are you noticing? What would you want more of? Like, it doesn't have to be a play by play, but for it not to be like this black box and then it's over and then we go back to, falling asleep or doing whatever we had planned for the day.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of checking in during sex. I think it's so, my experience is it's so important for that feedback from a standpoint of, like, especially for us women, like where like the bodies can be so dramatically different, day to day. I think it would be so helpful for, because what I've seen is my partner as well as people that I coach is that it's without that level of this is working in this moment or this isn't, and agree, like not necessarily the play by play, but just some level of checking in. It's so easy for partners to just be like, well, this worked last time, so it should work this time. And it's not, it doesn't actually. And I also really appreciate what you were saying around this, these types of things that partners can do, like quick little things like that, that slap on the butt or that scratch on the back, like anything that's in that sensation type of realm can really help draw people back into their bodies if they've shut down or checked out, or it's like another thing that's just like, oh, a sensation. It's like back here, back here, back here. So I think that's such great advice. Now, what about when people are like, for parents, right? So let's move this conversation over to parenting and sex. And one of the things that, I mean, there's so many things that come up around time and body changes and hormone changes. And of course, after, pregnancy and delivery, then there can be postpartum depression. There's like so many challenges, right? That we could just name. So if people are having a hard time as parents integrating sex and integrating intimacy in general into their lives, where do you like to start? What advice do you have for people?
The first thing is to stop tracking frequency. I was actually the one in the relationship who was like, it's been X amount of days or X amount of weeks. And giving you and your partner permission to just stop tracking the frequency and start focusing on how are we connecting around sex, even if we're not having sex. So, can you look at a sex toy website together and be like, oh, that looks interesting. You don't even have to buy it, but just get inspired or watch one of the Netflix shows that is out, like Sex, Love, and Goop or How to Build a Sex Room, read a book together, listen to erotica. I think sometimes we feel like we have to go from 0 to 100, like not turned on and, wiping baby food off our face to like all of a sudden wanting to jump in bed or wherever, you can find the privacy to have sex. And just commit to keeping your erotic essence alive as a couple, even if there's not actual penetrative intercourse. And then this is really hard, and I understand how hard it is, but I highly recommend, especially new moms, to keep their own erotic essence alive. So maybe you have lube and you put some on and you don't even self pleasure. You're just like, what would it feel like to like feel a little extra tingle on my vulva today? Or, maybe you um like take an extra long shower. I love taking baths. Granted, when you have a young child, you can't always do that. But if both people can try to keep the erotic essence of the couple alive by keeping some sort of learning or discussion going, and then you as, I mainly work with women, so I'm talking about women here. You as a woman keep your own erotic essence alive. There's a greater chance that even if it's a season where the frequency is less, you won't have like turned everything completely off. And one thing that's helped my husband and I too is to say, I wish we could be having more sex right now. I really miss your body. And then we just feel that coziness of knowing you're desired and you desire each other without it having to feel like pressure. I know some people would rather have anticipation than certainty, but I like hearing, oh, I really wish I could have your body, or I really wish we could be together. I miss our sex life, or I want you, I want you tonight. And then I can say, I don't know about tonight, but like maybe later this week. And then it's at least like ping ponging in our field versus, oh, we haven't had sex in a long time and neither of us are wanting to talk about it. And then it feels like it becomes its own dark, shadowy thing without even intending it to be.
Well, and I think within the context of all that, you mentioned earlier on the idea of almost rewriting your agreements, right? And changing the agreements. And that's a perfect example of it. If I'm like, well, for some people, they might want, hey, to feel cozy or feel this way or to be communicated this way. And this is, maybe like looking at the sex toys is like great. And that's enough. Or saying these things that at least acknowledging desire is enough and that feels great. And I think and for other people, they might need other things. So I think it's just a really good example around like, there aren't rules on this other than the ones that we place on ourselves and on our relationship. And wherever that is, as new parents, like have that conversation around how can you at least keep some level of this erotic energy alive, even if it's not engaging in like what you're saying, like the frequency and tracking and all that. So I think it's such beautiful advice. And so we're going to wrap up here in a moment for part one. I want to make sure everybody knows about your work as well as what we're talking about in part two, which is in part two, we're going to have a really good conversation on domination and submission and how this can be a healing part. And I know that so many people listening are at such wide varieties of the spectrum with this conversation. Some people being very experienced here and other people thinking like this would never be for me. It's really interesting. Like one of the things I'll share here is like the first time I was ever tied up with Japanese shibari ropes, it was amazing to me what happened to my nervous system, where, being with a partner who I deeply trusted and everything relaxed, right? And it was like so fascinating to be in this position of like submission and feel my nervous system move into some of like the deepest relaxation, probably of my entire life at that point. So, if you're listening, it's like this, there's so many different ways that we can heal from this. And so in part two, I'm going to ask Violet to take us through like some of the safety around us. How do we start? How can we heal? And so much more. So make sure you look in our show notes for how to access that. I want people to know, though, a little bit about like you and your work and how people work with you. So tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my website is violetlange.com. You can find out more about my work there, but I'll admit it's not super up to date because I have a 7-month-old. And so I'm not updating it as fast as I would like. But I have a few offerings that relate to sexuality and others that relate to more like dating and finding a partner if you're single. My sexuality course is called Sacred Sexuality, and it's about moving sexual energy through all of the chakras and linking that to different parts of the body. So you may not realize that like our G-spot and our third eye are energetically connected, and I won't go into all the details on that. And then my husband and I work with couples, and we have a program called Evolutionary Couples, or a self-paced program called 12 Epic Dates, where you can go through and practice everything from polarity to kink to talking about finances. It's supposed to help create more erotic energy in your relationship and have a lot more fun, while still covering some of the things that get in the way of a thriving sex life, like resentments and trust issues.
Amazing. Oh, so such great giveaways and offerings. So thank you for all that. We'll have all of that in the show notes. And thank you, everybody, for listening. We will see you on another episode of The Lounge real soon. Ciao for now. Thank you for listening to the Libido Lounge. Please don't keep me a secret. Please share this with your friends. You can find me on YouTube, on Instagram, as well as how to work with me at mylibidodoc.com.